the beautiful near future. Okay, I can't do this. I was going to say the beautiful near future city of Red Rock, and that would hold true if you also enjoy twiddling your fingies and staring at PowerPoint presentations. As pretty as MindsEye can be, the reality is that it runs about as well as a 30-year-old moderately obese man with a cup size that would make your girlfriend jealous. To their merit, Build a Rocket Boy did recommend that you sell your firstborn child, your dog, and pictures of your tootsies on certain websites in order to play the game on a 4070. Rev, the 4070 isn't that expensive. Well, calm down there, Elon, because it doesn't matter. I'm convinced that you could waltz right into NASA, start up MindsEye on their supercomputer, and your FPS would still be lower than Kenneth Copeland's blink rate.
Southwind Heat!
Now, I'm not trying to come across as hateful and mean, it's just that I wasn't expecting a game that wears its Cyberpunk influences on its sleeve to dive headfirst into the Cyberpunk experience with a botched release and more performance issues than I have after a couple of rounds of Crown Royal. The reality is that in a gaming landscape full of corporate overpromise and half-baked releases, MindsEye said, alright, let's do it all. Which is disappointing to me because I really do feel like Build a Rocket Boy made something that has great potential. The story of MindsEye isn't bad. At times, interactions between characters had me giggling and farting and thinking about going outside myself. Jacob Diaz, as the protagonist, was enjoyable and relatable. I too find myself thrust into the escalating situation between corporate overlords and money-hungry politicians while on personal quests for answers. The only difference is that Jacob was on a quest to find answers about his past, while I just want to know if laying in a bathtub full of tomato sauce while pretending I'm a meatball is an acceptable form of self-care. Let me know in the comments, and while you're at it, if you're enjoying the video, consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. My goal is to get the channel to 250 subscribers, which will open up doors for early review opportunities, meaning that I get to suffer through game performance issues earlier and you get reviews of me suffering through game performance issues earlier. What's not to love about that? As we all know, being caught in the middle of corporate and political struggles means that all of the overlords who suffer the great burden of being weighed down by wealth while simultaneously tossing off the weight of moral responsibility will send in the little guys to fight their battles for them. That holds true for Jacob, who constantly finds himself in the midst of firefights and giant explosions. Which sounds cool as far as games go, however the firefights and gunplay in MindsEye leaves me a little underwhelmed. First and foremost, in a case of comical irony, the AI for a game that surrounds its entire story on the rise of AI and its dangers is mediocre at best. At times, the AI seemed about as lost as a certain former president, and at other times it made decisions that made about as much sense as the decisions our current president is making. He's playing chess, Rev. Please, I'm convinced that man licks the candy canes on the Candyland game board to see if they're yummy. Anyway, the AI, in all honesty, really detracts from what would be decent combat. Gunfights are far less fun in the game when you're shooting at an AI with the combat logic of a carrot. On the upside, the game's arsenal is a definite highlight, the weapons feel satisfyingly punchy, and while the whole collection looks great, I was immediately partial to the Wraith submachine gun and the sniper rifle. The sniper, with its deep, enjoyable crack, was perfect in taking a screw that guy in particular approach from a safe distance. In essence, it's the weapon equivalent of being a keyboard warrior on social media. The Wraith submachine gun, on the other hand, was a standout in the more claustrophobic fights, allowing me to maneuver through cramped hallways and rooms, evading enemy fire as effectively as Kenneth Copeland evades the responsibility to actually care about the people that send him money. However, firearms aren't the only weapons in your arsenal. Later on, the game hands you your own personal taser on wings, a drone called DC-2. This sounds like a tense, tactical thing, but it's mostly just an opportunity to watch the enemy AI stare blankly at the angry little flying robot shooting sparks at them, completely forgetting that the concept of cover even exists. But DC-2's talents don't just stop at being an airborne nuisance. Eventually he gains the ability to hack other robots, forcefully recruiting them to your side. The game calls it hacking, but I prefer to think that DC-2 is just employing the politician's playbook, winning them over with a series of false promises and significant amounts of gaslighting. When you aren't spending time engaging in firefights against AI with the IQ of a rock, you'll often find yourself behind a steering wheel of your vehicle. Driving in MindsEye is honestly one of the greatest strengths of the game. The vehicles feel responsive and fun to control, and they look fantastic. Like, put me on my strange addictions because I think I'm attracted to some of these vehicle models. Build a Rocket Boy certainly knew that their vehicles were a strength, as many missions require you to take part in some high-speed, high-octane car chases, and whether it's through city streets or on the twisting roads of the desert, these car chases were quite a lot of fun, so long as the game wasn't trying to implode upon itself, taking your frame rate with it. Unfortunately, there was one part of the story that made little sense to me from a narrative perspective. As Jacob begins to unravel the mystery of his past and the mind's eye attached to his noggin, he eventually begins seeing portals appear in the world. These portals, first of all, are poorly explained and quite frankly poorly implemented into the game. To me, the decision to add these portals seemed last minute and disconnected from the overall narrative. It's as if someone at Build a Rocket Boy decided to throw their keyboard at the wall, and the result was the narrative equivalent of wiping with sandpaper. So, what's the final verdict on Mind's Eye? Well, honestly, it feels like a great game that's bogged down by its own performance issues. It has a compelling story, fantastic vehicle sections, and punchy weapons, but all of the good stuff is constantly being kneecapped by the bad. The story is hard to enjoy when the game is running like a PowerPoint presentation, and the weapons are pointless when the AI you're shooting at has all the strategic brilliance of a houseplant. So for the official Silly Goose rating, Mind's Eye gets just a goose. It's not a total disaster that would earn it the dreaded Swan ranking, but it needs a whole lot more time in the oven before it can even think about earning that coveted Silly Goose status. If you enjoyed the video, consider hitting that like button. And if you would like to see more reviews like this, hit that subscribe button. As always, remember that you are loved, and until next time, see ya silly gooses.
I'm at the crater.
Made it. Help! Uh-oh.